In this Digestive System Lab, we'll be taking a look at multiple anatomical models. Looking at this tooth model, the first thing we see is gingiva, and right here, gingiva refers to the gums. Here we have our incisors, these four right here. These are the central incisors and the lateral incisors, but the incisors for top and bottom. And then we have our canines, which are here and here. Also, here's the lower canines. They're also known as eye teeth or cuspids. Looking at more of a oblique view, again, here are the incisors, the canines, and then we have our premolars, and then finally the molars. With the mouth open, once again, here are the incisors, here are the canines, here are the premolars, and the molars. Again, on the lower teeth, the incisors, the canines, the premolars, and then the molars. If we take a lower canine and open it up, this is what we see. And the crown is going to be from pretty much where the enamel ends up. So that is the crown. Dentin is what the tooth is mostly made of. That makes up the bulk of the anatomy of the tooth. And that's kind of a porous compound, and mostly made of calcium. At the top here is enamel. Enamel is the hardest substance found in the body. Okay, so that is enamel. And then the neck is pretty much from the bottom of the enamel here up to where the gums end. So the gums would cover pretty much the neck. Now technically, if we go from here up, this is technically the anatomical crown. If we go from at the top of the neck up, that is the clinical crown. And again, we know that it's the clinical crown because the gums, the gingiva, basically are from here up. Next we have the pulp, and here's some nerves and blood vessels running through the root canal. And so here's the root. Oh, and by the way, here's the pulp cavity, and then the root canal. Again, what runs through the root canal is going to be blood vessels and nerves. Looking at salivary glands. On the side here, we have the parotid gland as well as the parotid duct. Underneath is the submandibular gland, and we can see it a little better if we remove this and kind of rotate it a bit. So here's the submandibular gland. And then we have the sublingual gland that we can't see on the models. They're going to run along the sides of your tongue. Looking at the pharynx, and we have the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. And these will be shared with the respiratory system as well. And then in this model of the stomach, so this is the esophagus, and then the stomach, and then the first part of the small intestine, the duodenum. Here we're going to see the lower esophageal sphincter. Lower esophageal sphincter. Looking at some of the anatomy of the stomach, we have the fundus right here. We have the body, which is here. And then we have the pylorus, or pyloric region. And this would be the pyloric sphincter opening up into the duodenum. And then here would be the cardiac region. Now the cardiac sphincter is the same as the lower esophageal sphincter. There's no difference. But cardiac, when you think of cardiac, what do you think of? You think of heart, right? Here's how I remember that, because if this cardiac sphincter or lower esophageal sphincter is relaxed, acid will splash up and cause inflammation in the esophagus. And you can see that here. They've made it a little red. Okay. And what do we normally call that? Heartburn, right? And so that's how I remember this is the cardiac region, or the cardia. And when that cardiac sphincter or lower esophageal sphincter, the LES, is relaxed, I get heartburn. Okay. And then we see these folds in the stomach, and they are called rugae. They allow the stomach to expand. They also form channels. So, rugae. And then we have on the outside here the greater curvature and the lesser curvature. Now you may be wondering what these are. This is going to be a gastric ulcer, an erosion through the mucosa of the stomach. And we've learned that a lot of times that's caused by a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori. Helicobacter pylori. And then over here is a duodenal ulcer. And now looking at the abdomen here, again, here's the stomach. This like apron hangs down over the stomach. Now this is showing just half of it, but this is called the greater omentum. This being plastic, it looks rather thick, but on a cadaver and in real life, this is a very thin, like I said, apron that just hangs down, very delicate and very thin, with little fat globules kind of hanging down off of it. But again, that's the greater omentum. Looking at the muscularis externa of the stomach, so basically the outer layer is the serosa. If we kind of remove that and look at the muscles, we're going to have this outer longitudinal layer of muscle. Okay, just below these nerves here, these are branches of the vagus nerve. Then we also have the middle circular layer. And then below that, the inner oblique layer. Looking at the small intestine is going to be made up of the duodenum or duodenum. Either way is correct. I call it duodenum, but duodenum is fine. Next we have the jejunum attached to that, and the jejunum is the first part. And then, or the middle part, I should say. The first part is the duodenum, then the jejunum, and then the ileum. And the ileum ends at this area of the large intestine called the cecum. Okay, and it ends at the ileocecal valve right here. Now, this being a plastic model, of course, you really can't tell what's what. In a cadaver, you can. So you're going to want to remember this in order, though. Duodenum, jejunum, ileum. You can remember DJI. DJ. Oh, you know what? You can think Dr. Jerry. And then ileum starts with an I. Oh yeah, an I in Roman numerals is number 1. So Dr. Jerry's number 1. Okay, you don't have to use that one if you don't want. But that's one way to remember, though. DJI. Okay, duodenum, jejunum, ileum. Okay, now let's take a look at the liver. And as you can see, the liver is a pretty large organ. The diaphragm is going to sit here and kind of lap over, kind of rests on the liver. and then the lungs sit on top of the diaphragm and kind of take the shape of the liver. Okay, the liver sits over the stomach, and you can see the gallbladder here. So let's take a little better look here. And we've got the right lobe of the liver, the left lobe of the liver, and then right here on a cadaver, it's going to be this really thin little sheet that helps to anchor the liver in place, and it's called the falciform ligament. So it's going to look nothing like this picture here, but it is called the falciform ligament. And peeking out from underneath here is the gallbladder. So let's take this and we're going to flip it from right to left. And this is what we're going to see, and then kind of tip it downward so we can look underneath. And so this is our posterior view. Matter of fact, this is the inferior vena cava that the liver is kind of wrapping around. And then this is the anterior or front view. Okay, so we have the, in this case, the right lobe is over here. The left lobe is over here. So this is like you just pulled your liver out away from you and then tipped it on its side. Right lobe and the left lobe. Then we have this lobe toward the back, which is called the caudate lobe. Remember, caudal means tail or toward the rear. So this is kind of in back of the liver. So the rear of the liver, I guess. And again, that would be the caudate lobe. And then here, this quadrangular shaped area is the quadrate lobe. Okay, quadrate lobe. And then we have the round ligament, also known as the ligamentum teres. And teres technically means round, but it's really cylindrical. Okay, so if you think of like a pencil, that would be a teres shape. Or say, you know, a marker. A marker would be cylindrical. It would be teres shape. But if you look at the end is round. When you learn muscles, there's the teres major and the teres minor. And again, they're going to be that shape of a muscle. And again, we have the gallbladder right here. So let's take a little bit closer look at the gallbladder and the structures in this area here. One thing that we have is the hepatic artery and the hepatic portal vein. Then looking at the gallbladder, again, here's the gallbladder. Now, another term for bladder is cysto, C-Y-S-T-O, cysto. Okay, like for instance, if you have a urinary bladder infection, we would say you have a cystitis. If you have an inflammation of your gallbladder, we say it's cholecystitis. Okay? So, the duct coming off of the gallbladder is the cystic duct. Okay, cystic duct. Here we have the hepatic ducts. Okay, and then they combine to form the common hepatic duct right here. And then the cystic duct and the common hepatic duct combine to form the common bile duct. Now I have another video that just goes over that, and you can find that on my YouTube channel. Next, we're going to take a look at the pancreas. Now the pancreas sits right underneath the stomach, so if we pull the stomach out of the way, we can see the pancreas right here, kind of nestled right there in the duodenum. A little closer look. And we have the head of the pancreas, the body of the pancreas, and the tail of the pancreas. Running through the pancreas is going to be the pancreatic duct. Now this is an accessory duct right here, accessory pancreatic duct. But this is your main pancreatic duct. Okay, if we look here, this is the common bile duct. It's going to go behind the pancreas, and it's going to hook up with the pancreatic duct. And it'll form kind of a swelling. Now, I have a much better picture in the lecture, and so, kind of look at the lecture for that. But that little enlargement is going to be called the hepatopancreatic ampulla, or the hepatopancreatic ampulla of Vader. Okay? And inside that is going to be the hepatopancreatic sphincter of Oddi. Okay? We also call it the sphincter of Oddi. All right? Now, let's get a little closer view, and we'll kind of rotate it and look inside the duodenum. Okay? So now we're looking inside the duodenum, and again, here is the head of the pancreas, the body. You can see a little bit of the tail of the pancreas, pancreatic duct, hepatopancreatic ampulla of Vader. Again, inside that will be the hepatopancreatic sphincter of Oddi. And then right here is what we call the major duodenal papilla. Major duodenal papilla. This would be the minor duodenal papilla, just because this is an accessory duct. But this would be the major duodenal papilla. And this is where the sphincter of Oddi would open up and allow bile and digestive juices from the pancreas to go into the duodenum, to start mixing with the food that just left the stomach. Now, taking a look at the large intestine, we have the appendix. Again, this blind pouch called the cecum, the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and then we have this S-shaped area. S-shape is sigmoid, so we have the sigmoid colon. And then right here is the rectum, and then finally the anus. Taking a little closer look here, these puckerings are going to be called haustra. Okay, so haustra are the puckerings. This, which looks like tape, looks like somebody put down a piece of pinstriping or tape right there, that is called the tinea coli. Now, if you take microbiology, you might learn about a certain type of worm that its genus is tinea. So you can probably guess what kind of worm that is if tinea means tape. Yes, tapeworm. Okay, so again, just remember, tinea is tape. So tinea coli, a tape that goes along the colon. Once again, the cecum, the ileocecal valve. Now moving down a little bit farther is the anus. And we have the internal anal sphincter, and that is going to be made of smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is involuntary. We have no control over it. But the external anal sphincter is going to be, skeletal muscle. Okay, so this is going to be skeletal muscle here and here, and that we do have conscious control over. So what happens here, as the rectum fills, the pressure then causes a reflex in the internal anal sphincter to relax. Okay, and this is why with children have to reach a certain age until the neurology and the musculature is enough where they can control the external anal sphincter. Okay, otherwise you have incontinence. Okay, and again, if the nerves are affected too, going to this external anal sphincter, again, you can have incontinence. And that can happen sometimes with age as well. Well, you can tell by this slide that we are at the end. So I hope this helped.